Welcome everyone back to the Pathways to Success podcast. On the show today, I have Cheri Garcia, and she is the founder of Cornbread Hustle, a staffing agency for second chances. Cheri is passionate about helping felons and people in recovery find transformation through employment or entrepreneurship. As someone who has reinvented her own life, Cheri wanted to create a company to help others do the same. Before starting Cornbread Hustle, Cheri found her own transformation and recovery through inventing a tanning bed and getting a career in the TV news industry. Cheri developed expert-level skills for marketing and PR. She uses those talents to help individuals getting out of prison rebrand themselves to become the person they want to be and get noticed by the people they want to meet. Cheri also is a PR consultant for Mark Cuban companies and provides strategy plans and media opportunities for a variety of Shark Tank companies. Cheri, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for such the warm welcome.
Yeah, when I first met you, I didn't know you did all of this other stuff too, which is pretty crazy.
Yes. I'm one of those people who wear a lot of different hats, but I'd be bored if I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I want to learn a little bit about your transformation story and really the genesis of this very interesting concept of helping, felons transform their careers. Because as you know, I'm in talent acquisition. So when you tell your story, Cheri, where do you start?
Man, that's a tough one. So usually it starts by somebody asking me that question just like you did. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I grew up in a pretty good home. My family they had good 6-figure paying jobs. I was a cheerleader. I was on the softball team. And I took the wrong turn one day. I decided to try a dangerous drug called methamphetamine. And it was honestly just to lose weight. I was on the cheer team, and I was like, you know what, a drug that makes you lose weight, stay up late, get good grades, who wouldn't want to try it? So I ended up being addicted for 2 years straight and lost just about everything. And on that journey of drug addiction and selling drugs, because I ended up selling drugs to fuel my habit, I never got a felony. And so I bypassed the felony. I ended up inventing a product, getting into TV news, and I just went on about my life. And I ended up telling my story later on the Steve Harvey show and opening up because I felt like I wanted to help others. And that led into me getting into prisons and doing motivational talks and teaching entrepreneurship. Well, after these guys got out of prison, I started getting a lot of friend requests from people with face tattoos and gang signs. And I was like, what? Well, these people were coming out of prison saying, thank you for teaching me these entrepreneurship skills. But my parole officer said I need to get a job within 2 weeks or I'm going right back. I have this ankle monitor on. I don't have a driver's license. And I was like, whoa. So I kind of was putting the cart before the horse by teaching entrepreneurship when we just need to get some stability here. So we took that passion they had for entrepreneurship and turned it into entrepreneurship, finding jobs where they can use their talents and skills that might have been used for bad behavior, aka drug dealing, inventory, manufacturing, retail, wholesale. It's all the same thing. And so I was just placing people in jobs, and I woke up one day after about 30 days of doing that, and I said, well, now I worked myself out of a job because I haven't worked on my own startup at all. So obviously this is my passion. I need to figure out a way to monetize it. I teach entrepreneurship. I'm sure I can. And so that's how Cornbread Hustle was born, which is a staffing agency for second chances.
First off, there's so much there that we need to unpack. So let's go a few things one by one. So you went through, would you consider it addiction? Mm-hmm. I mean, okay. So how did you overcome that? How did you kick the habit? And let's start there.
Whenever I look back, it was 11 years ago. Uh-huh. And I remember slowly kicking the habit. Everybody has their own journey. I did not go to rehab. I did not do a 12-step program. So my journey isn't the same story as a lot of people. I found my recovery through entrepreneurship. I got a fire in me to invent a product. And entrepreneurship, there's a lot of highs and lows. And the highs and lows are just as intense as drug addiction. But the difference with entrepreneurship, even at your lowest low, you're still moving forward because you're learning. In drug addiction, you're moving backwards no matter how high you feel on your best day. So through inventing a product, I just found my transformation, and it wasn't that difficult, to be honest with you. I didn't do the whole one day at a time and how do I stay sober. I did relapse about 30 days after I got sober and got arrested, and then 30 days later, I nearly overdosed on a methadone medication. So both times that I relapsed, I was like, you know what? Being sober really sucks, and having to face everything that I messed up and having to get through reality, but it doesn't suck as bad as almost dying or getting arrested. So it was pretty easy for me to make the decision.
Wow. So this was right around high school time frame?
Yes. So I developed my addiction in my senior year. So that was 2004. And then summer of 2007, I got better. So it was during the last stretch of my high school year, and then a couple of years into getting out into the real world. Obviously, I bypassed college and skipped all that.
Yeah.
I went to the School of Hard Knocks instead.
So entrepreneurship sounds like it literally saved your life.
It literally saved my life.
So let me ask you this. Where did this interest or love for entrepreneurship come from?
You know, that's a tough question. I remember being younger and making bookmarks out of yarn and going door to door and selling them. I remember inventing a peanut butter syrupy type of invention. I worked at IHOP at the time on the weekends whenever I was early on in high school, and I noticed that people were spreading peanut butter on their pancakes and then pouring syrup on it. And I was like, why don't we just make like a peanut butter flavored syrup just to, I just felt like it'd be something. So I was silly. It was silly of me, but I was going door to door trying to sell that too, like little samples, asking people if they'd try it out. So obviously between the bookmarks and the peanut butter flavored syrup, I wasn't serious about it. It didn't go anywhere, but I think I was born with the entrepreneurial bug. And in high school, I would say another thing that helped with my transformation was I had a photography studio. I still struggled a lot with drug addiction during that because creativity and drug use often goes hand in hand. So I wouldn't say the photography studio helped me in any way, besides I still had my passion for entrepreneurship while going down the wrong path.
Interesting. Okay. And it sounds like the first thing that really kind of hit was this tanning bed. Like, what exactly did you do and make here?
Yeah, so it's, as funny as it sounds, it's like an aluminum-shaped taco. And I created it because one time I was tanning at my at a family reunion or something, and my mom had this really expensive tanning lotion she got from Hawaii, and I asked her if I could use some, and she was like, no, I'm almost out, and it's expensive. And I was like, huh. And so I remember being in the pool and just thinking of a solution where I could, without having to use some expensive tanning oil, how can I get tanner faster? And I came up with the idea of creating the first ever tanning bed you can inflate or deflate, take anywhere with you. And it uses reflective material to consolidate heat and keep you warm while you can tan anytime, whatever the weather is, as long as the sun is shining. So I jumped out of the pool and started Googling like crazy and looking around for how do you get a patent? What's the first step? And so I did the whole silly mail a letter to yourself because that's how you can protect yourself. But obviously it escalated to getting a patent attorney and making drawings and getting manufacturing done overseas and getting inventory and as seen on TV and Leslie's Pools and retail. So I learned everything there is to learn about wholesale, manufacturing, resale, and inventory. And that's also, it crossed my mind many times that I was like, man, this is just like drug dealing. It's all the same thing. You're looking at your profit and loss, and you're marketing to people. You're getting other people to spread the word and go get other people to test the product. And so, it's just always been a passion of mine. I remember early on thinking one day I'm going to transform the library in my hometown into like an entrepreneurship center so people can go there and explore their creativity and just learn a little. I haven't done that yet. It's still in the plans.
Unbelievable. Now, do you have entrepreneurial influences? Like, were your parents business owners or?
Not any way, shape, or form.
So this really was kind of innate. That interesting. So what can you talk about, like the success of it? Like what is it called? Like
Yeah, it's called Luminous Envy.
Yeah.
And I successfully bought 1,000 units and sold 1,000 units. I haven't re-upped on I said re-upped. I haven't. See, that was an accident. I haven't got any more inventory because I started consulting and PR, and there were other ways that my time made more money. It got really exhausting coming home at the end of the day after I shipped out a bunch of units, and then I ended up having to ship out more. So I was doing drop shipping. Leslie's Pools Nationwide was selling them, but I was doing all the work. So one thing I didn't realize when I started off as an entrepreneur was it was easy. I looked at my piece of paper and I thought, wow, so I can buy this for $35 or $30. It was $35 with the pump that came with it. And I sell it for $99.95. To me, I was like, that's great margins. I'm going to be rich. Let me sell 1,000 of these and make my money. Well, what I didn't realize until I had to learn a lot was if I sell it to a retailer who's going to get the word out quicker and sell it to more people, I have to sell it to them for $49.95. So I was at a point where my $35 cost price wasn't worth selling it for $49.95 and doing all that work. And so I was trying to find a lower cost price and I couldn't. And then I was making a lot of money doing PR and marketing. And so I was like, you know what, one day whenever I find one of my guys or girls who gets out of prison that has a passion for something like this, I will totally fund it and help them on their way and just keep some equity or something. So I have the patent. It was issued. You can look it up, Luminous Envy. I have the trademark. I have all of it. It's just on the shelf right now.
So how did you start developing these marketing and PR skills? Because that sounds like entrepreneurship, engineering, manufacturing. Where did that marketing piece come from?
So before I graduated high school, barely, obviously, because I had developed that drug problem, I actually had created a news station within my high school because it was my dream to be a news reporter. I obviously got kicked off as the news anchor because I was high on school TV. So I just revisit what was my passion before drug addiction, because drug addiction will take away all your passions. That's like the number one thing that will happen. Anything you loved before drug addiction, you could care less about. It's a really weird thing. That's why drugs can really it takes all the life out of you. And so I was like, you know what? Even though I didn't go to school, because my goal was to go to school to be a news reporter, I said, I think I can still figure it out, get my foot in the door. So I studied the news. I watched every single newscast, all different slots of the day. I reached out to news reporters and just said, can I come meet you out in the field and just follow you around and see what you're doing? I literally created my own college because it took me 4 years of bothering people and researching and learning. And I finally, when I was about to give up, because I did a demo reel and everything, and news stations were not letting me in because I'm the only one without a college degree. Usually you have to have some kind of college degree. So finally I sent a pizza that had my resume face down on it that said, if you hire me, I'll deliver. And 2 stations in 1 week said yes. Yeah. And I took both the jobs and worked 7 days a week. One in Market 156. I don't know what market they are right now. So Sherman, Texas. Yeah. And one at Market 5, CBS 11. In Dallas. So I was like, okay, well, let's do this. And I learned so much because I was producing newscasts that breaking news equaled a fender bender, while at the same time fielding out news stories and figuring out what's newsworthy, because in Dallas, a murder may not be newsworthy at all if it's in a certain neighborhood and if it's just gang activity. So I learned everything about the news and the media. And so I ended up getting like 800 to 1,000 press releases a day. And I would just be like, delete, delete, delete. And I was like, what? People pay these PR people for this? They're just blasting out press releases that aren't ever going to get on TV. And so naturally, I ended up starting secretly helping my friends get on the news. And I accidentally, without realizing it, became a really great PR person because I was selling news stories to my news director, pretending they weren't my friends.
I'm curious, what were some of the keys to that? What made a story stick and what didn't?
Oh, I teach a lot on PR. So what makes a story stick? There's 3 different things that you have to have for a story, and most PR people miss the most important. The first one is the story. So let's say it's the First Step bill that was just passed. for reducing recidivism. That would be the story. That's the relevant news topic. The second one is the expert. That would have been me. I'd be positioning myself as the expert to talk about reducing recidivism. What everybody forgets is the poster child. Who does this story affect? It's the story. So while you send the reporters these press releases that say, hey, big news, Trump is signing the bill, we're going to reduce recidivism, here's an expert to speak. While it is a story and the reporter needs it, you just gave the reporter a big job of looking for somebody who was released from prison who has their own story. So what I do whenever I reach out to the media, I do all the work for them. And I say, hey, I start the story with, Joe spent 20 years in prison. He was recently released, and the First Step bill really affects him because blah, blah, blah. Cheri Garcia with Cornbread Hustle can speak on this topic. And so I write the story for them, basically.
That is really awesome. How did you get plugged into Mark Cuban, Shark Tank, all that stuff?
Okay, so after I left the news business, actually I ended up getting fired. It was a funny story because it was one of those reply all things. And I'm glad I did because I wouldn't have really taken the plunge. I wouldn't have taken the plunge for full-time entrepreneurship and going after my dreams because it was so hard to get that job. I was like, why would I ever leave if it was hard to get my foot in the door? So ended up becoming vice president of a PR firm here locally. I called the guy up and I was like, hey, I've never done PR, but I think I'd be really good. And so I started off at like freelancing and then on a 1099, and then within 2 years became vice president. And entrepreneurial bug again just kept biting me, so I left that company and I reached out to Mark and I said, hey, let me do your PR. And he said, if you read anything that I wrote, you'd know that I don't believe in paying for PR. And I was like, well, if you read anything that I wrote, you'd know that I care about experience over money. And he was like, okay, cool. And so I was like, complimentary. Let me just reach out to some of your founders of your companies and try to get them PR. And he was like, cool, go for it. And so I did it, and I just continued to do it for a couple of years. And then I was like, hey, can we make this a little more official? Can I have some office space while I try to build my startup and while I'm working on myself? And he was like, sure. So it's more, I literally barter with him. So I reach out to his founders it was National Peanut Butter Day. And I looked at his roster of companies, and one of his companies sells peanut butter from Shark Tank. And I reached out to them and said, hey, FYI, you should already know this. Shame on you since you don't, but I'm going to tell you it's National Peanut Butter Day. I went ahead and called the news station out there where you guys are at. I can't remember where they're at, Pennsylvania or something. They're interested. Get your crew up there. They're going to come out and shoot a story because it's relevant. So I just, on my own, whenever I see relevant topics and I know that I can get something out there, it's a good creative outlet for me. Keeps me on my toes, keeps me in the know with all the news and stuff. So yeah, it's literally a barter deal where I have some office space and some resources to grow my business, and I pay it forward by helping his companies.
Oh, what's pretty interesting is, you were so just casual about it. Yeah, I just reached out to Mark and then I got his attention and this and that. How was it email? Was it what did you?
Well, I reached out to him on his app.
Cyberdust. On Cyberdust.
Okay, it was brand new, and I felt like nobody was on there yet. So I was like, I know he's going to see this message.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of relationship do you have with him nowadays?
It's always, he doesn't meet with anybody in person really. Yeah. But it's just, I'll send an email and say, hey, here's an idea, or hey, can I do this? Or just straight email. He's such a good guy. Honestly, I look back in time, and I don't even know if he'd remember this, but back in 2011, when I was doing my whole stalking reporters, trying to learn everything that I could to get into the news business, I went to a Mavs fan day, a fan jam. And I ran into him, and I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. And he was like, hi, I'm Mark Cuban. I was like, hi, I'm Cheri. Chafin at the time was my name. I was like, hi. And so then we ended up going our separate ways. Then another time we ran back into each other and it was like, hi, I'm Mark Cuban. And I was like, hi, I'm Cheri. Because I wasn't going to be like, you forgot who I was. And so he turned around and he was like, I'm so sorry. I already met you once. And he looked over at his communications girl and he was like, will you get her sideline reporting credentials so she can work on what she's trying to do? And so for a year I had a Mavs credential badge, and I could look back, I still have the stories out there. I was finding people in the audience and getting their story on why they were at the Mavs game and what their passion was about it, or talking to a Mavs maniac. I was doing like the most bottom of the barrel stories possible because I was just working on my writing skills.
Such an incredible story. Okay, so loop us back here to present day. So tell us the story of how Cornbread Hustle came to be. Where did this come from?
So yeah, I started volunteering with the prison entrepreneurship program because I started telling my story to people. And this one guy, he sold multiple companies, super successful. I can't remember exactly his name, but I remember him saying, we were doing PR for him. I remember him saying, Cheri, have you heard about the prison entrepreneurship program? I said, no. He goes, well, they literally teach entrepreneurship in prison. It seems like something you dig. And I was like, whoa, that does sound awesome. So I signed up to be a volunteer, and then I ended up volunteering in the prison. And funny enough, the Steve Harvey show had reached out, and it had nothing to do with what I was doing. It was because somebody had maybe put my name in the pot because I had a bad divorce, and they were doing something silly about burning your wedding dresses. And so they reached out to me, and they were like, you want to burn your wedding dress on the Steve Harvey show? And I was like, sure, that sounds awesome. That's hilarious. I'd never do that today, but back then I thought it was awesome and funny.
That happened on TV?
Not yet.
Okay.
So it was about to. And then they said, let's hear a little more about your story. And I was like, okay. So I started telling them, and they're like, whoa, we need you to tell that story. And I was like, no. I've never gone public on my meth addiction or anything like that. Like, I kind of bypassed all the trouble, and I don't have anything on my record, so probably just should leave it that way. And they're like, no, but do you know how many lives you could change and how inspiring this can be? And I thought about it for a while, and I guess pretty quickly after that, the Steve Harvey news crew was inside prison with me and a bunch of the inmates with the prison entrepreneurship program, and I told my story for the first time ever in 2013 to over 3 million people.
Unbelievable.
So the Cornbread Hustle ended up happening, like I said earlier. These guys were getting out, and I had to take it back to the basics. Like, okay, wait, yes, it is your dream to open up a restaurant one day, but you have got $50 and a bus ticket, and you don't have a driver's license. So let's start with getting you a job as a waiter, so you can really shadow the general manager and start learning everything you can about owning your own restaurant one day. And so an example of that would be one of my guys got out after serving 20 years, and he said, well, I'm going to get this job at IHOP. And he sounded sad about it. And I was like, why are you sad about it? You got a job. He's like, I don't want that job, and it's minimum wage. And I said, why'd you take it? He said, I'm a felon. It's all I can get. I said, that's not true. I said, I didn't have a degree, and I got a job in news. I said, you just got to be creative. And so I asked him, what are your passions? What do you like to do? And he brought out all these drawings he drew in prison and these paintings and this airbrush kit. And I was like, holy cow, it was like the best work I've ever seen. So I was like, all right, tell you what, we were at the halfway house. So I was like, where's the computer? You guys have Wi-Fi? He was like, yeah. So we went and we got on the computer, and I Googled mural painting company Dallas. And I found a small company. I called the guy. I said, my name's Cheri Garcia. I volunteer with the prison entrepreneurship program. I have a guy sitting next to me that's, no offense, probably better than anybody you have on your staff. And I said, however, he did just get out of prison after serving 20 years, but he will be the most loyal, dedicated, hard worker you'll ever meet because this is his passion. I said, I'll even come to the interview with him. So the next morning we had the interview, and he got the job, not for the minimum wage, but for $10 an hour. And so I did that a few times with several different inmates that were getting out. And that's when I woke up one day and said, I worked myself out of a job. Now I can't pour from an empty cup. So how do I make this a business? And so I'm the craziest person in the world that decided to charge companies extra money to hire a felon. And it works out because they end up having lower turnover because they're not going to leave. They have people working really hard. They've already built culture because I've been talking to them since they've been inside prison. They already they know they're representing Cornbread Hustle, and they're not about to let down their brothers and sisters who are part of our, I call it like a gang for good, really. So, everybody told me, make it a nonprofit, make it a nonprofit, make it a nonprofit. And I was like, how am I going to be out here raising money and asking for donations when I've been a leader to these men and women for so many years teaching entrepreneurship? And plus, I'm so addicted to entrepreneurship that I don't think I could wake up every day running a nonprofit. I just couldn't do it. So I decided to take a huge leap of faith, and say, okay, I'm going to be the first ever person to make a for-profit on a re-entry program.
How long have you been in business?
So I've been in business for, it's 2.5 years. And I'm just now starting to make money. Because if you think about it, there was no way I could put the cart before the horse and just start placing people in jobs. I had to make sure that I had to do a lot of testing. And I had to understand who to place and who not to place. And inmates are the most manipulative people you'll ever meet in the world. And so I had to learn how to dissect a con artist or know that somebody is able to change or not. And speaking of manipulative, by the way, that's why they make the greatest call center representatives, because they're so good at either selling or getting somebody to pay their debt. So that's number one, call center representatives for people who are inmates. But anyways, it's going good. I just got a call today that somebody needs 4 welders by Monday morning. They don't care, background friendly. I just set up, I'm not going to say the name of the hotel yet because I don't know what kind of PR they want for it, but I just signed a good agreement with a hotel that wants to hire for second chances, because the unemployment rate is so low right now and the turnover rate is so high. And there's, when people have to do e-verify, it's hard to find employees. And so I think we're coming to a time, especially with all the reducing recidivism and prison reform efforts, I think we're coming to a time where people have to kind of look beyond a criminal record. But I want to be that person HR people can go to and say, well, you vet these people first, and I know they've already kind of gone through some hoops with you first. Because say a company decides to change their policy because they need to, just straight up because the unemployment rate is so low and they need to start looking beyond criminal records. Well, now you have an HR person in a position to interviewing somebody who just got out of prison or has a criminal record, and they're not really quite skilled on knowing if that person is just giving them, a lot of lies. Is the best way I can put it. Because not everyone deserves a second chance at all. And I'm pretty strict with my guys. I don't go down to their level. I pull them up. You have to be respectful. When I first started this, I thought I needed to be their friends and come down to their level and allow them to talk any which way that they wanted or anything like that. But now I'm just super strict, and I have a lot of different hoops they have to jump through first before they're considered for employment with me, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that do a lot of great work. But for me, if I'm not making real change happen, and if my guys aren't successful, I'm not paying my rent. So I'm literally putting my money where my mouth is when I say that hiring a felon will increase your profit margins and help the bottom line.
Cheri, when you first reached out to me, I was skeptical. At the end of our first meeting, I was still skeptical. When you're walking up here, I was still skeptical about this whole thing. But now I'm learning about your story, and you're slowly making me a believer. Now, one of the things you wanted to talk about are why companies should hire felons. If you could boil that into 3 reasons, and I just, as an HR person also, my mind is spinning even just saying that, right? Why should companies hire felons?
Well, 1, it's good for society, but let's take away the feel-good part of it. 2, a lot of HR people should know that you get a $2,400 tax credit if you hire somebody within a year of their prison release, or if you hire somebody a year after their felony conviction. And that's huge. $2,400 a felon tax credit can really help you out at the end of the year when you file your taxes, or at the beginning of the year, I should say. Another reason is the loyalty. A lot of people that you're working with have strong sense of loyalty. They were in prison. They had to have each other's backs with whoever they were loyal to. They've had a lot of friends and family members do them wrong. That first person that gives them a hand, I'm not going to say a hand out, a hand up, they are so loyal to the very end, because a lot of people think felons are just bad people. Usually it's because they were in an environment they couldn't control. They were born into a family full of addiction and rage and drug dealing and just domestic violence. So they didn't know any other way. Then they go to prison, then they meet some other people, they get into some reentry programs, and they're like, oh, so that's not how you're supposed to act? They don't know any different. They went to a school that was full of kids in poverty, so they just don't know another way. It's all about education. So the loyalty. And then the most important part that's going to help your bottom line is the turnover. They're not going to leave because they get a door shut in their face by everybody else. And you hire somebody, say a millennial, who is just looking for their next job until they get to where they want to be. They're leaving you after you've already invested all your time and energy into training them because they decided it's not their passion and they're moving on. And so I just really explain to people, when you invest in a felon, they're going to invest back in you. And a lot of people, I know you probably do it too, whenever you talk to people about workplace culture, when you hire a felon on, you don't have to work as hard to prove to them why this is the job for them. They're happy to have the job. You don't have to have the keg in your office and the ping pong table and figure out all these ways to keep people engaged. They're engaged because you gave them a chance. And they believe in you because you believed in them.
How do you determine whether or not somebody's worth a second chance and being represented by Cornbread Hustle?
So I've had a lot of hard lessons to learn. Thankfully, none that really affected anybody else but myself. And that's why it took me a couple of years before I could make money, because I was making sure, as the guinea pig, that I was the only person being affected. I would say there's some things I've put in place. I know there was, at one moment, every Thursday nights, I had class at a public library. And it ended up becoming a place for homeless people. Word got around where they'd just come and eat the free food. And half of them were still high or drunk or whatever. And so I was like, this isn't good. And so one of the ways that I've created a change is we do have all of our workshops are at a nice building, like at City Central, co-working space in Dallas. We train HR people, and if anybody wants to come interview with Cheri Garcia, I don't care if you have to take 6 buses to get there. You're getting to this nice building where you have to dress nice to get there. We're no longer a public service where you're showing up off the streets because you heard you may get free food. And, hey, I'm looking for a handout, lady. What can you do to serve me? Another thing that I've started doing is I've partnered with the Workforce Solutions, and it is a prerequisite that they have to go and get something signed off that they got their interview mock done with them and then their resume done with them, because they have to drop their resume into our system. And a lot of people don't have resumes. They don't even know how to make a resume. So if somebody's going to go through those hoops and then go to our orientation, which is at the Workforce Solutions once a month, then I know that they do really want a second chance. The people who are trying to con you, or are still on drugs or what have you, that's a lot of different steps to take to get to a point of being in our candidate pool. A lot of people who just don't deserve a second chance aren't going to go get their resume worked on or go do a mock interview or get advice before they can get to the interview.
So what kind of skill sets would you say that you specialize in placing? Like, what kind of candidate pool do you have?
That's a good question. So that's probably why I haven't been as successful as I could be, but that's okay. I'll sacrifice that because I try to find what the person's passions are. Mm-hmm. I literally work for my felons. I don't work for my clients because I find out what the person wants and then I go and sell them. Just like I did that first day that I realized that this was my passion. I figured out what the guy was passionate about and then I sold a client. So there are times that, like I said, I'll give an example. A pizza chain contacted me. A couple of chains have been contacting me. One really interesting thing that I didn't realize that's a major problem are these chains are having a really hard time getting general managers. Let's just use one for example. Let's say, what's a gas station? Racetrack. Mm-hmm. A company like Racetrack has a really hard time getting general managers because they do, let's say they're doing background checks, they're finding somebody worthy enough to be a leader and has somewhat of an entrepreneurial mindset. And so they bring that person on and they're only making $35,000 a year, and they start to feel very quickly that this is beneath them. They're not meant to be just a manager at a gas station. Well, you take one of my guys who just got out of prison who loves entrepreneurship and has his own store, gets the profit share, gets bonuses, is a manager, gets to hire, gets to look at the profit and loss statements. It's the happiest job in the world for him. So that's one thing that, it's not that I'm even going after those clients. They're starting to come to me where they're like, we're having a problem with general managers. So that's what I'm going to be really focusing on is my leaders, because a lot of them have extreme leadership. Think about it. If they were in gangs, if they were drug dealers, they're very influential and they're very organized and they're very dedicated and they have discipline if they were good at what they were doing. So like the hotel, they reached out to me. They're looking for some receptionists. Great. I have some girls in my sober living home that look very presentable, and they just got in some trouble with addiction. They're sober now, and they'd be great for the receptionist position. I try my hardest to stay away from the jobs that people think about when they think felons, which is manual labor and treated badly, because I'm trying to help these people change their lives, not feel like crap about themselves. And another rule of mine is I don't pay under $10 an hour unless it's a situation where someone's in a homeless shelter and their only bill they have is their cell phone bill, and $8.50 an hour would make a big difference for them. But I try my best not to pay people under $10 an hour because I don't want to put them in a position where they feel like they have to sell drugs on the weekends to pay their child support.
This is going to sound like a crazy question, but it comes from a sincere place, right? So are you seeing any kinds of patterns of success of the kind of, let's say, crime an individual committed to where they might succeed in the private sector?
That's a good question. Well, I would say drug dealing is obviously where those general manager positions.
Yeah, because that's like running a business.
It is running a business.
Flat out, right? Yeah.
So that would be that. The drug dealing charges are the ones where they can be in a startup and very eager to be all in on all the nuts and bolts. They actually care. They want to grow with the company. There's one company specifically, they're called Yerba Mate. They're hiring, you probably know them. They're hiring from me. They hired one of my best guys. I told them, you're taking one of my best guys. I might come back and get them later whenever I can afford to hire an employee. But they actually have it's their business model to hire only felons. They're about to hire their 60th felon. And the guy I gave them, it's like he's his own boss with he has a territory. Okay, literally a territory, just like as a drug dealer. And he's done so well because he's pushing cases of yerba mate. He's going into 7-Elevens. He's going into different convenience stores, and he's getting he's persuading them. He's giving them tests. He's letting them try it. And he's become so great that now they're having him build his own team and hire more felons to work underneath him and learn at how he's doing it.
That's one of your guys?
Yeah.
Get out of town, Cheri.
Juan Garcia, shout out. He's actually about to be at my office today. And so I continue to work with these guys and help teach them more about branding themselves and marketing and PR, because I know it's going to make them better for, my success stories. I need to. It's hard. They have a really bad name out there. So I have to really work hard to get these guys out here with their success stories.
Prison stories of teaching them inside the walls and outside the walls. How does that kind of tie into things?
So I would say that, teaching people inside the walls is really important. So I started volunteering. I don't have the resources right now to get Cornbread Hustle into prison because it's literally just me. I'm the only person in my company. I'm doing this all. So I started at least volunteering to go in every Tuesday night and start, and it's a program called Bridges to Life where they're learning a whole bunch of skills, like soft level skills on accountability and, you know, what you did was wrong and let's repent and all that stuff. So I would say the best time to catch them is when they're in a confined environment where they have a lot of time to think. It is difficult. You lose some people along the way because once they get out and smell that fresh, crisp air and go into a 7-Eleven to get their first, you know, to gas up their car for the first time, there's temptation from the get already, and it's triggering from the old lifestyles. I would say drug dealing is just as addicting as the drug itself. So you get triggered. You go into a gas station and you see something as simple as the Swisher Sweets that are up behind the cashier, and Swisher Sweets are the cigars that people cut up and put weed into, and it's an automatic like trigger where it reminds them of that one time that they sold dope to somebody at the gas station and they, you know, gave them a free cigarillo to go with it. So teaching inside prison and feeling like somebody's a really great candidate, you still got to talk to them outside in the free world first too, because it's very easy to it'd be like you if you went off to the Marines right now. It'd be a lot easier to stay in shape if you were in a confined environment where they're making you work out. Mm-hmm. Then when you get out into the free world, that's what they call it, the free world. When you get out into the free world and nobody's holding you accountable and you don't have to be anywhere or in bed or being told to work out, then it's up to you and it's your own discipline. So my goal with working with these guys is to keep them excited and to provide them opportunity. To back up a little on why I told that guy no on the IHOP job, I knew there were two things that were going to happen. One, he was going to be in the back with a bunch of people who were selling drugs on the side and probably be influenced pretty quickly to do that on the side because he doesn't feel like he's doing his purpose. There's no bigger plan. And just because somebody would work at IHOP doesn't mean that doesn't fit with their purpose. One of my girls right now is actually working at IHOP, and it's part of her big plan that we've put together. So the other thing was, I remember the reason why I stayed sober and why I ended up becoming successful in my own right, I'm not going to say financially, but becoming successful was because I started sharing my journey with the world, and the likes got more and more and more, and people started cheering me on. And then the most magical thing happened. People started saying they're inspired by me, and people started saying that they did XYZ because of my story. And so my job every single day is to get somebody in a position to feel like they can never go back because people are looking up to them. And these people, every single resume that I get or application, if we looked at all of them right now, all the hundreds, when it says if you could do anything for the rest of your life without making money, what would it be? Every single one of them says help people. Every single one. It's never, without a doubt. One time somebody said smoke cigarettes and watch TV. And I just laughed out loud. That's it. But all the time, these people want to help people. They want to help the broken because they're broken themselves. If I ask anybody else who may not be a felon or may not been through a lot, if you could do anything in the world and not worry about paying bills, what would it be? 99% of the time, they're not going to say help people. They're going to have their big, ambitious dream of whatever that may be. So knowing that these people have good, genuine hearts, I want to put them in a position that they'll be happy in, to where they are one day doing what I'm doing, which is paying it forward and helping others.
When you do place someone, is it like are they a contractor? Is it like a direct placement? What does that look like?
So it's temp to hire.
Gotcha.
And it's 90 days, and then they can hire them on. Usually they like to do that because it makes them feel really good, and they can get a raise. I tell them you get a break, or you can give them a raise. And then there's some people that want to do just direct hire, especially like the people who have been reaching out for the general manager type positions. They just, and you know, it's just a direct hire. It's like $3,500 and they pay me half up front and then half at the end of the 90 days. If they don't work out, then I replace them. But usually they'll work out because I'm really serious about, I'm not your typical staff. I hate being even called a staffing agency, but what else do I call myself? I'm not your typical staffing agency where I'm like, hey, here's a person, here's the job, good, let me make my money. I really sit down with that person and ask, like, you know, why are you taking this job? What are your bills? Is this worth it for you? You're going to stick around. So usually when I send somebody off on a job, they're going to stick around. I would say the hardest thing that I would deal with in terms of keeping people to stick around is there is a lot of family drama within some of these people's households where it's just, it's hard. Think about it. Say you're a man and you come back home after being in prison for 20 years. You're coming back home to people that you haven't lived with in a while. Mm-hmm. So that's why they always suggest going to a halfway house first or a sober living home.
Gotcha. Personal branding. How do you begin to help someone who's come from this kind of situation rebuild their brand?
Yeah, so an example I had posted on LinkedIn the other day, I put 2 resumes side by side. The guy came in with his resume and I said, Jason, we're going to have to work on your resume. And he was like, I know, I don't even like hiking. I like hunting. I don't know why that's on there. And I said, no. I mean, I said it shouldn't be on there at all, number 1. But number 2, like he just had literally goal, get job. 2018, incarcerated, and so what I did was say, what did you do in prison? Well, I did manage this one program. I was a trustee and I worked in the cafeteria. I did this. So I end up saying that their experience for that 10-year gap was with TDCJ, which is Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And I say all the job duties they performed and what management skills they had. And in terms of branding yourself, I'll sit and I'll look at their social media and be like, okay, I don't know why you have a bunch of pictures of money, girls, and cars when you have none of those. So we need to clean that up because it's just immature. It's also explaining to these guys, remember, what they think is successful. Well, I guess their mind of what's successful is way different than our minds of what's successful because they grew up in the hood and that was successful to have a bunch of money and cars and girls, and so they feel like they're aspiring to be what the rappers are saying you should be, and they haven't been around professional people, they haven't been to networking events. And that brings me to my next point. That's one thing that I definitely do. So every single Wednesday year round I have a free luncheon, and it's for entrepreneurs, business leaders, or HR people, and it's always an expert coming in telling people how to grow personally and professionally. My guys are always allowed to be there and show up because I don't like segregating people. I don't like having, here's the felons, let's have our own private time, and then here's the professional people. I always stand up in front of the room and I'll say, you don't know if you're sitting next to a millionaire, a billionaire, or a felon, okay? Because that all of us are in this room right now. And so I start the conversation on that everyone makes mistakes, and all of us possibly could have a felony if we just got caught on some of the things we were doing. And for me, for sure, I should have like 16,000 felonies. I probably committed a felony trying to get here because I was so angry trying to find this place. But anyways, I'm just real big on starting conversations and trying to reinvent the label of what felons have. And a lot of people like smoking weed, and it's legal in some places. I've had so many people come through my office, normal everyday people, scared out of their mind, freaked out because they got caught with a gummy bear, an edible gummy bear, or one of those vape pens. Did you know getting caught with edibles or the vape pens is a felony in Texas?
Really?
Because it's a manufacturing charge, because you took it out of its original form, which is a flower. Oh. So at that point, you have a manufacturing controlled substance charge, the same charge you would get if you were caught with meth or heroin.
Same charge?
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. And so these people can't get jobs or can't even get their foot in the door whenever they're good people who have skills. And then they're spiraling down and down and down, feeling depressed. And the only job they can find is an $8 an hour job when they had a vape pen in their purse. And I mean, these are people with normal everyday jobs. And they got caught. Thankfully, praise Jesus, I do not care about weed. But there's a lot of people that smoke weed, and it's legal in a lot of places. So we have a big issue with our justice system on that right now.
Cheri, I'm still along the lines of this personal branding, and honestly, I think I would be more than happy to. I want to help tell the success stories that come out of this, right? Because it's an education thing. Because there's going to be a visceral reaction to anyone that you're talking to HR pitching this, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here.
Maybe so. I mean, yes and no. I would say it's amazing because a lot of people come to me saying, my sister, my dad, myself, a lot of people come to, I'm like, my Facebook inbox sometimes is like a Catholic confessional box. I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. So a lot of people do reach out because they secretly never got caught and they want to give a second chance. But yes, talking to HR people in general, it is tough. And I actually speak to Fort Worth HR on Valentine's Day, I believe, and it's 150 HR people, and it's my first time to speak about this in front of a whole room of HR people who aren't, most people I speak in front of, they came to my event. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be different, and I'm excited about that. But I'd love to share success stories with you. I have them. We were just on the news, I think last night or 2 nights ago. It was all in Spanish, so I didn't understand most of it. But one of our girls, she literally went from having a felony theft charge to handling over millions of dollars of diamonds every day for her job.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And it was just meth addiction. She had all these theft charges because she was addicted. And so it's really hard for people, and me especially, because I get it. I would say it's equivalent to, say you had a really drunk night, and the next day you're really regretting how embarrassing you were. You might have, danced on a table or slept with somebody you shouldn't have slept with, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't end up with a felony. You just had the guilt and the shame. So let's say you got sober after that, and 6 months later you're looking back at that and was like, God, that's embarrassing. I'm glad that's not my life anymore. Well, we have people who get sober a year down the line. They're happy. They have their freedom out of their own mental prison, and it's a reminder every single day because they still can't get a job because of that assault charge they got because they were high and got in a fight with somebody while they were addicted to drugs. So to me, I feel like it just really sucks that somebody can even be 5 years sober, and it doesn't matter. It's not just a guilty, embarrassing, shameful incident. It's something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life.
Cheri, one more topic we got here. How to empower your employees to thrive in jobs they may not love.
Yeah, I know. And you're like, what are you doing? You're telling HR people, like, you're putting them in jobs they may not love? I don't care how great you are at HR or how great you are at interviewing people. There's jobs that people don't want, and you're putting them in those positions. Let's just talk about maybe like a housekeeping job at a hotel. Do you think somebody really for minimum wage wants to clean up people's puke every morning from the partying the night before? Not really, but they need that job and they're going to take it. So what you want to do is empower them to be excited to come to work every day. And how you do that is to talk to them about their personal goals. I'm helping a company right now with their culture, and we're bringing in vision boards, and including the founder. We're all making vision boards because we want everybody to tell everybody what the personal goals are and how our company is going to help you get there. You want to be a stand-up comedian one day? Great. We'll make sure we're taking time out of our week to talk to you about what we can do to help you get there. Because it's a digital marketing company, so I can tell them, hey, let's help you build your basic website because you're investing in our company. Let's get somebody to spend a little bit of time on that. So say it's the housekeeping person and their goal at the end of the day, they could want to be a manager at the hotel one day. So having those ongoing conversations with them, really not pretending to care with this workplace culture stuff. I see people do it all the time where they're pretending to care and they're having little work outings and they have a budget, but actually putting the human back in human resources and remembering why you got in this job in the first place and caring about people and where they want to go. You're almost a counselor. I feel like HR people have a super, super powerful position, and they have the ability to change people's lives. I was just saying the other day to somebody, I think I posted on LinkedIn, if you receive a resume that is so bad that you're like, what the hell is this? At least reply to the person and tell them how bad it is. They might go get it. The guy that came into my office that I told him his resume was so bad, we fixed his resume. I sent him to Workforce Solutions. He fixed his resume, and he had a job within 12 hours when he couldn't get a job at all because other HR people were just saying delete. That's trash. So I want to empower, first and foremost, HR people to understand that you're changing people's jobs. They're spending 40 hours investing in your company. And even if you're an HR person and it's not your company, it's your job. It's your report at the end of the year on how well your employee engagement is going. So they're investing in you. So I just feel like people should invest back into their employees. And if you care about what their weekend hobbies are, or what their ultimate goal is 3 years from now, then they're going to be happier coming to work because they feel like they're on a path to get to where they want to be instead of taking this job that they don't know why they're at and it's not in line with their purpose.
Cheri, what else do you want us to know about Cornbread Hustle, about you, about your mission, about your purpose? What do you think?
I would love to have a conversation. In my office, I have a big sign that says, let's start a conversation. Anybody interested or curious about hiring felons or understanding second chances or addiction, I'm happy. I'm all about education. We are all about education, opportunity, and community. So any questions you have, please reach out, cornbreadhustle.com. I definitely am aware that there's some charges that you would it wouldn't work. We're not going to put a child neglect charge in a daycare, right? So I'm very, very passionate about educating people to make the right decisions, to make the right second chance hire, because any wrong second chance hire can mess up everything that I'm trying to do, not just on a local scale, a nationwide scale. I really want to be on the forefront of changing policies and really getting people to understand second chances and how they can literally hiring felons and second chances can literally be part of your business model. I know that's taking it really far, but we can do it. It is with
the yerba mate company, right?
It is. Yeah.
So it's working for at least one company.
It's working for them.
So you said Cornbread Hustle. Where else can we follow you on social? And
So LinkedIn, obviously, Cheri Garcia, Cheri. Facebook, you'll find me the same way. Twitter and Instagram, it's Luminous because of my invention. Yeah. Luminous_Cheri. And I look forward to hearing from everyone if anybody wants to reach out.
Cheri, I think you're doing something really so extraordinary, and I really am just so impressed with everything that you're doing, and I wish you all the best. And honestly, I'm so curious about this that I want to somehow get involved also.
Great.
Maybe add some of my expertise in talent acquisition, being a corporate for 11 years, that I could help maybe influence positively your group. I don't know.
Woohoo! I'm glad I came here today. Yeah, it's such an ambitious goal. I will tell you that. Sometimes I have a lot of faith, and I'm like literally 100% sure that this is the right thing to do, and I'm on purpose with my mission. But I'm not going to lie that there's some mornings I wake up and I say, you are crazy. Because I can make a lot of money doing PR and branding for a lot of well-funded companies. Like tomorrow. And by the way, I do still help companies with their PR and marketing. I gave it all to a digital marketing company in exchange for them allowing me to at least build the team up. Because I was like, I can't stop being an expert and loving PR and marketing, so we'll send it that way. But there are some mornings I wake up and I'm like, man, it is so much easier to just put successful news stories or successful business owners on the news and get paid a retainer every month and pay my bills. I literally was like living out of my car to get this company started when I knew that I could get paid as a high-level PR person at any marketing firm. So I guess 3 years into it, there's no going back now, but man, I do wake up asking myself if I'm sane sometimes.
Well, I think it's a great thing that you're doing. You're obviously starting to achieve success, and man, I'm happy to help any way I can, and I wish you all the best, Cheri. I really do. I'm sort of at a lack of words, just how unique and different this is. So Cheri, we'll have all your contact information here in the show notes as well. We'll be following you closely, so thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
And everyone else, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.